Twin sisters Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen got their television debut on the TGIF sitcom Full House when they were both less than a year old. Somehow, within about 6 years, the two were swimming in cash from their company Dual Star, which had become a multimedia empire overnight. Though it came long after the original release, I fondly remember watching some of Mary-Kate and Ashley's direct-to-video movies, but that's just nostalgia talking because, objectively, they're absolute garbage.
Whipped cream pouring like waterfalls.
But it wasn't just the direct-to-VHS stuff. The Olsen twins were literally everywhere in the 90s. You've got Mary-Kate and Ashley books, movies, sitcoms, clothes, music, toys, makeup, magazines, furniture, toothpaste, and the subject of today's video, video games. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with Rule 34. You know, if it exists, there's porn of it. Well, tie-in video games are a lot like that. If it exists, there's a video game based on it. So, I'm not entirely surprised Mary-Kate and Ashley games exist, but there are like a million of them. How did they squeeze this much material out of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen? And it's incredibly bizarre because most licensed games are based on a specific piece of media, like a movie or a TV show, but these games are based on two real-life people. How weird is that? With this much abnormal media attention, it is no wonder why the Olsen twins are barely seen in public anymore. But let's go back to when the Olsen twins were in their prime. Likely just prior to 1999, Dual Star partnered with Club Acclaim to publish video games for dedicated gaming platforms like the Game Boy Color. It was an interesting choice, considering the fact that 99% of their market would have been on the PC. Apparently, bad business moves were a continuing trend with Acclaim, especially considering the fact that the Olsen twins sued the crap out of them in 2003 for unpaid royalties. And that's why Acclaim is doing so well today. Easily the most well-known of these games are on the PlayStation. I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but let's go ahead and take a look at all of Mary-Kate and Ashley's games on the PS1 to see if any of them were worth the lawsuit.
If it's up to me, you'll RSVP.
The first game we're taking a look at is Mary-Kate and Ashley Magical Mystery Mall. The title has already made me want to turn the game off, and I haven't even booted it up yet. Well, they must be having a sale on these failed video game companies, because this game was made by N-Space, the developer behind the mediocre Rugrats games on the PS1 and a metric crapload of other licensed trash. We're in good hands, clearly. Although, based on the intro FMV, maybe I should give this a shot. I thought we would be in a mall the whole time, still we're apparently going to a 50s-style diner, ski hills, a full-on fashion show, a dance studio, a red carpet premiere, and the beach. And even though some of those activities sound impossible to make compelling gameplay out of, this intro cinematic is pretty well put together, to the point that I actually kind of want to see what the game is like.
Nothing better than being at the mall on a rainy Saturday. There's nothing better than being at the mall on any day, Mary-Kate.
Never mind, I've seen enough. It looks like MK and A over here fell down the uncanny valley and hit every rock on the way down. Twice. And as if this isn't bad enough, the twins have what I like to call main character privilege, in that since they're the models you're going to be looking at for most of the game, they are also the most detailed models in the entire game. In other words, the character models only go downhill from here. At any rate, we're going to need some kind of narrative to contextualize having to look at this for the rest of the game. Mary-Kate and Ashley are out for a weekend shopping trip when they come across one of those ratchet jewelry kiosks no one ever buys from.
Oh great, it figures I pick out the most expensive necklace here. Hi, we were just admiring this really awesome necklace, but it's probably out of our price range.
Yes, because the Olsen twins of all people couldn't possibly spare the cash. I took a quick look at the Olsen twins' current clothing line, The Row, and when you're selling a cashmere sweater for $1,100 and price upon request is a part of your business vernacular, I think you can splurge a bit. The owner tells them that the necklace is old and broken, so she offers it to the twins for $5. As they walk away, the owner tries to inform them that the two halves of the necklace shouldn't be put together because...
I've heard strange things have happened. Do you understand? Huh?
Let's just ignore the fact that the pendant was put together when she sold it to them, so maybe this warning came a little friggin' late, but whatever.
Okay, well be careful. Yeah, right. Someone call the weirdo police. Best friends forever.
Apparently, putting the two pieces of the necklace together put a curse on the mall, freezing everyone inside plus most of the stores. According to Genie Lady, the spell can be reversed by recovering the missing gems, and the only way to recover these gems is by completing minigames at each of the 5 open stores in the mall. If we fail, these two models of Mary-Kate and Ashley will be forced to continue living in ceaseless suffering.
We're majorly sorry.
So, let's get to it, I guess. You know, Mary-Kate, if I were in this kind of life-threatening situation, I might walk a little bit faster. And to add insult to injury, this is your running speed. Clearly, the developers felt the game really needed a walk button, so you can walk by holding down square. N-Space has always been terrible at making functional movement controls, so I probably shouldn't be that surprised. Anyway, the first minigame I tried out is called Lizzy's Lunch, and before we start playing, I have a crucial decision to make. Do I want to play as Mary-Kate or Ashley? Well, Mary-Kate looks a little less depressed than Ashley, so I guess we'll go with her. Have you ever played Diner Dash? You know, that game where you're a waitress and you have to take orders and bring the customers food and all that? Well, this minigame is like that, but it controls like an old man's butthole. Even though N-Space couldn't make walking feel natural, they decided the best course of action here was to put Mary-Kate and Ashley in roller skates. They're pretty slippery, and it's sadly kind of easy to get stuck on the counter, but it's a simple enough minigame. You just have to bring each customer their food before the timer above their head expires and make a certain amount of money before the timer runs out. 10 points go to whoever can tell me where these customers are coming from, because last I checked, they're supposed to be, you know, frozen. It starts out pretty easy with all of the customers ordering only pizza, but later on they start ordering other food items as well as drinks. It really only starts getting mildly challenging when the customers start ordering drinks, because you can't carry more than one thing at a time, so their patience meter is dangerously low by the time you've actually given them everything they ordered. It's also a little glitchy. In fact, a couple times customers ordered food that was never actually made, which was pretty annoying. You can occasionally get power-ups, but they seem to be given out completely at random, and the game really isn't that hard anyway. Also, a minor problem with this one is that the camera is a little bit too zoomed in to tell what's going on, but once again, it's not a huge deal. All in all, this minigame is about as fun as working a real minimum wage food service job. The next minigame I tried is in a store called Fash, which clearly needs to fire whoever picked out this disgusting color scheme. Here, we have to put together a fashion show by picking out the outfits and taking photos of the twins modeling them. And I have to say the outfit creator is actually not half bad. The twins' real-life personal stylist, Judy Swartz, was in charge of costume design for the games, and she actually did a decent job of selecting what pieces would be included in the game with the limited space for options available. However, I am kind of uncomfortable with the fact that all of the pants are low-rise. This just feels wrong. And have a look at some of these other dated early 2000s fashions. Mary-Kate looking like a church window. My main problem here is that the twins will not shut up.
Great choice. Dig this crazy pattern. This color is so me. Totally cool material. Majorly cool color. Awesome color.
Like, I know you kind of have to be here considering your names being in the title, but please shut up. I'm not sure how much involvement the Olsen twins actually had in the making of their games, but they definitely did voice acting for them. However, this was at a time when they were getting a bit too old for some of the media they were being forced to participate in, and it definitely shows in their movies.
I can't believe Callie won.
This also certainly shows up in their voice acting here, since they really have no reason to give it their all, and they honestly sound completely bored most of the time.
Okay, so where can we find them? Ooh, bad shots. I'm totally bummed.
As for every other character in the game, it's totally obvious that none of them were voiced by professionals, and it sounds like they were all probably voiced by the developers. In fact, according to the credits, quite a few of them are. Anyway, back to the fashion show. Once all of our outfits are put together, it's time for the twins to strut their stuff on the runway while you take pictures. Honestly, these outfits are all hideous, these photos are terrible, and I don't currently know how fashion works, but I easily won on my first try, so whatever. The next minigame is at Catch a Wave Surf Shop, and seeing as the worst part of the last minigame was taking photos, that's the entire minigame this time. The premise here is that Mary-Kate and Ashley have been telling everyone that they're best friends with two cute lifeguards who don't even know them.
Wait, look. You can either tell everyone you were kidding, or just get some pictures with them as proof.
I'm not sure this is appropriate advice for an adult stranger to be giving to two random children, but at any rate, that's what we gotta do.
And here's what the boys look like. Cuties, huh?
I am disgusted.
Does anyone else find it really off-putting that these are real photos? To be frank, this minigame bored the crap out of me and seemed to never end. In a nutshell, it's basically Pokemon Snap. The camera is on rails and following the two boys automatically. All you have to do is press the circle button to send the twins out to pose and snap photos when all three subjects are in frame. While the two lifeguards are initially freaked out by being chased around for candid photos, they for some reason start willingly posing with the twins. You might think that made the minigame easier, but I actually got stuck at this point because the game wasn't giving me enough points for my photos to progress. I still have no idea what I did wrong because my photos look completely fine, but I eventually made it through. And by eventually, I mean that I quit the game and realized the game has a manual save system, which I never used. At this point, I had a bit of a desire to just give up, but something compelled me to trudge back through 3/5 of the game again. It was on my second playthrough when I discovered this information desk in the mall isn't purely decorative. It actually allows you to get more in-depth tutorials on each minigame. Here, I learned you can change the camera angle in the fashion show minigame using the shoulder buttons. Not that I really needed it there, but I also learned that you can change the camera angle in Lizzy's lunch to give you a full view of the restaurant. I have absolutely no clue as to why anyone would want to handicap themselves by putting the camera at any other angle, but there you go. Another non-minigame place in the mall is the Bonus Boutique, where you can spend those bonus tokens I keep getting but have been told nothing about. The Bonus Boutique is a slot machine where you can unlock new features for the minigames. For example, you can unlock a new runway for the fashion show minigame, or make your customers in Lizzy's lunch unable to leave without their food. These bonus tokens appear to offer the only replay value in the entire game. Not particularly compelling replay value, but replay value nonetheless.
After all, what's a game for young girls without a little gambling?
Anyway, back to the minigames. Here we have Music Nation, where the genie lady puts us in charge of choreographing a music video. Interestingly enough, the dance moves in this minigame were compiled from the choreography of Darren Henson, the choreographer behind several late 90s music videos from the likes of Britney Spears and NSYNC, among others. Now, while I think his choreography was outstanding in reality, it just looks spastic here. However, a cool thing about this minigame is that it's so lightweight that it can run entirely in RAM, so there's actually an option to swap the game soundtrack for your own custom music CDs.
The whole CD swapping thing is a pretty impressive feature, but that's probably the most remarkable thing about this entire minigame.
When it comes to actually filming the music video, it's more drawn out and tedious than waiting for dial-up internet to connect, and at least there's something to look forward to. You have to change camera angles with the D-pad throughout the entire filming process and trigger random special effects with the shoulder buttons in real time. Then you have to watch the whole thing play back again while a faceless, nameless music video producer judges your video. The entire grading system is completely subjective, and the video will look objectively terrible no matter what I do, so this couldn't have bored me more.
But I think I've saved the best for last because the Olsen twins are going snowboarding. Because when I think of the Olsen twins, my mind immediately goes to snowboarding.
There are 3 hills to race on, each being longer and more difficult than the previous one. After selecting a board and someone to race against, we get a taste of the snowboarding controls, and surprise surprise, they suck. Steering doesn't feel very responsive, and it's a little too easy to lose all of your momentum or get stuck on the sides of the hill. You can do various tricks by jumping in the air and pressing the shoulder buttons, but there's no practical reason to do so because there's really no scoring system beyond you win or you lost. Though I must say that the environments have actually been pretty well put together throughout the game, especially in this minigame. In fact, the third slope incorporates this winter village kind of area, which is actually a cool idea and looks really nice. Anyway, after I stopped trying to get the snowflakes and just hurtled myself towards the bottom, stopping for nothing, I won the final gem of the game.
This has been a grueling experience, so I really hope we get an ending that makes this worth the effort.
Oh wow, this is so great!
Thanks for the necklace. And your help. Best friends forever.
Well, that was underwhelming.
All in all, this most certainly was not the worst licensed title I've ever played. Magical Mystery Mall definitely had some interesting ideas, but the execution was more often than not completely botched. It seems that N-Space might have spread themselves too thin by making the game a minigame collection, thereby creating a need to program so many different sets of controls. And if you've played any of N-Space's other titles, you would know that fluid controls have never really been their forte. I also consider minigame collections to be kind of an easy way out for licensed games. 5 monotonous minigames of at best below average quality aren't going to impress anyone anytime soon. Perhaps I would have been more impressed with a game of a different genre. And the next one's another minigame compilation, Kill Me Now. This is Mary-Kate and Ashley Crush Course, once again developed by N-Space for the PS1, and based on this UI design, I'm willing to bet not much has changed. While I'm obviously excited to go on a new, exciting Olsen Twins adventure, I'm intrigued by this Meet the Boys option. Here, we can browse through a slideshow of hideously rendered archetypal boys who I'm assuming are the titular crushes of our two main heroes. The first order of business is to pick what outfits Mary-Kate and Ashley will be wearing throughout the game, and low-rise pants rear their ugly head once more. Once you've got your outfit picked out, it's off to school, where Mary-Kate and Ashley's friend Taylor fills us in on the game's story.
It all happened so quick. 1 minute, there was this note on your locker, and the next, well, Courtney was tearing it into pieces all the way down the hall. This was all I could salvage.
Hey, Mary-Kate, we hope school be Saturday B.
Apparently, a pair of boys decided it was appropriate to ask out two separate people in the same love note.
Well, that's flattering.
In fact, Mary-Kate and Ashley find this so flattering that they decide to track down all the missing pieces of the love note. And now, oh man. I mean, I guess I do appreciate the faster running speed and the controls feel a little bit better, but there's one thing that completely ruins the movement controls. The camera controls. Or, more accurately, a lack thereof. I couldn't find any buttons to control the camera, so it basically just went wherever it wanted to, but the movement controls don't always update with where the camera is. For example, if you're running towards a wall and the camera has to reset to a different angle, the controls still work as if the camera is still in its original position. It's kind of hard to explain, but trust me when I say this breaks the controls. In Crush Course, all of the minigames are hidden inside rooms throughout the school. In the first minigame I found, Mary-Kate and Ashley come upon that Courtney girl who ripped up their note walking into cheerleading tryouts. And instead of just walking in, getting the note, and leaving, the obvious course of action here is to try out for the cheerleading squad. Now, just take a look at this gameplay footage for a second.
Right. Left. Right. Left.
Looks like the easiest thing in the world, right? Well, believe it or not, this is actually really challenging, but not in a good way. There's a rhythm track playing in the background, but it might as well not be there at all because the video doesn't sync up to it. And even though the timing for inputs is incredibly lenient, the offbeat audio really threw me off. I feel it's also worth mentioning that I'm playing the PC port of this game, where the PlayStation's X and triangle buttons have been replaced with a pentagon and the Star of David, which correspond to right control and right shift, respectively. And that's far less intuitive than explicitly showing the buttons I need to press, which really messed me up when the game asked me to do the opposite of the displayed moves. So I actually ended up failing this minigame twice. For a minigame clearly intending to be a rhythm game, there's no rhythm to be found, but there is a smattering of Judaism. The classroom I went into next was the physics lab, where the twins attempt to find Courtney on a physics field trip to a mini golf course. Yeah, that's educational. This golf minigame is actually a repurposed minigame from one of N-Space's other games, Rugrats Search for Reptar. And it's piss easy. Also, just a nitpick, why does the game make me walk to the ball when every other golf game ever made just automatically teleports you to it? Now, while there is some very light strategy involved for some of the holes, it's beyond simple to get a hole-in-one on most of them, and I won the whole minigame in one try. The next classroom I went into was for marine biology, where the girls volunteer to pick up trash on the beach purely because Courtney is also signed up for it and they want the note from her. Mary-Kate and Ashley might be going a little bit overboard for this 2-for-1 love note. The challenge here is to put beach sea creatures back into the ocean and put trash in the correct bins. And may I say, this minigame is pitiful. It goes on for way too long, it's neither fun in concept nor in execution, and for a game where you have to look for stuff, the lack of camera controls is especially problematic here. Plus, it's yet another minigame ripped off from a different N-Space game, this time Rugrats Studio Tour. It wasn't fun there, it isn't fun here, and I have to wonder what moron in the development meeting said, "Hey, I have an idea for a minigame, picking up trash."
Let us know. Hope it's yes. It's yes, but who are you?
Oh, of course it's a yes, because the note couldn't have possibly been written by a completely undesirable person. Speaking of utterly undesirable, our next stop is journalism class, where you have to go take some pictures. In this minigame, stolen from Magical Mystery Mall, you're given assignments for photos you need to take, so you have to run around the school, take the pictures, and return to the journalism classroom. That's it. It's boring. Although I will give the game this, the environments and the graphics in general are handled much better in this game than Magical Mystery Mall. The school map is really believably designed, if a bit maze-like. It actually feels like this could be a real school. The models of Mary-Kate and Ashley also look a lot better this time around. While some of the character designs are a little bit awkward and all of the side characters are really low detail, the graphics go for a more cartoony style, which was probably easier to pull off in a one-week development cycle. The game also appears to run at a higher frame rate, which I suppose is a nice bonus. But improved visuals can't save this minigame from being wholly uninspired and boring. And it's unbelievable. This game actually got lazier because the next minigame is copied not just from another game, but from earlier in this game. This is just the cheerleading minigame again, rebranded as a talent show audition. What I said before applies here, but it's worse because this is intended to be slightly more challenging than the cheerleading game. No lie, this minigame took me a full half hour to beat. I'm not even joking. And that's followed up by another round of the photography minigame and another round of minigolf, so I was delighted when I found out the final minigame was actually original. Partially. And then I got disappointed again. It's a carnival arcade kind of thing with 3 different games. The first one is a shooting gallery, which was lifted from Rugrats Studio Tour once again, but it's competent enough for what it is. The next game is treasure collecting, and this minigame was the bane of my existence. It sounds simple. All you have to do is watch the clamshells and press the button for each shell to collect treasure while avoiding other items which will make you lose time or lose points. But it goes way too fast and requires far too many points to have any fair chance at beating it. The controls are also really awkward and cramped, with the PC port having the controls mapped to the arrow keys and the numpad. I was playing this clamshell minigame for a solid half hour, and if it weren't for this being the last minigame, I would have turned the game off by now. I actually ended up having to use a RAM hacking utility to slow the game down enough to win. Maybe I'm just pathetic and got my butt kicked by a game for little girls, but this minigame was absolute agony. The final carnival game is shooting hoops, which isn't too hard if you cheat. Find each hoop's sweet spot and spam the shoot button while moving the cursor. And that's the final note piece in the bag. And with that, the game is over. Mary-Kate and Ashley finally get to have their date with 2 completely one-note characters, and Courtney is being punished for her sins by having to spend the whole day with a nerd. Sadly, I'm relating a lot more with Courtney than with Mary-Kate or Ashley. I too have been punished for the past 3 hours with having to listen to 2 people who won't shut up.
All right! I can't believe it! We did it, Ashley!
They're still blinking. This is uncomfortable.
And that's an adjective that fits for the entire game. Uncomfortable.
I wasn't having any semblance of fun, and I almost felt like I was punishing myself by making myself play all the way through this piece of garbage. Nearly all of the minigames were recycled from other titles, and the few original minigames the game did have to offer were poorly programmed, sometimes frustratingly so. And to top it all off, the story makes so little sense and is so low stakes to me that the game itself provided me barely any motivation to play it, if any. Even if you're looking for a Mary-Kate and Ashley game to laugh at, this is not the one to go for as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just going to assume the same applies, potentially even more so, to the third Mary-Kate and Ashley title for the PlayStation, Mary-Kate and Ashley Winner's Circle, because it's about horses. If you've been paying attention to the first 2 games I've looked at, you might be wondering how we went from the mall to high school to horseback riding. According to a quick Google search, Mary-Kate Olsen has been riding horseback for decades as a personal hobby. Not really sure why Ashley is involved in this one, that being the case, but I digress.
I'm just gonna come right out and say it. This game is for horse girls, and no matter the objective quality, I will hate it. I will also preface this by saying that I know absolutely nothing about horseback riding, so I might be the wrong person to talk about this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Winner's Circle was developed by an Australian company called Tantalus Interactive, who appear to have worked mainly on licensed games for handhelds. More recently, they have been involved with ports of Sonic Mania and Zelda Twilight Princess, and were the developers behind Cities Skylines, and those games are fantastic, so perhaps this game won't be too bad. For some reason I can't skip the logo screens I've already seen twice, but check out this intro FMV here. Wow, stock footage and Walmart brand Britney Spears music? We're in for a treat. And actually, the game doesn't look half bad to begin with, but then you start customizing your character. Only 2 of the face options look at least somewhat normal, otherwise you have a choice between dirt face and Actually, I can't tell if this one is supposed to be a unibrow or a bindi. Either way, your customization options are far too limited, and for a game that appears to be trying to immerse the player in the game world, that lack of customization is a severe oversight. When it came to naming my character though, I was trying to think of stereotypical horse girl names, and I was stuck between Debbie and Betty. But why not have our cake and eat it too? So I named her Deddy. Small side note, don't ever look that up on Urban Dictionary. By the way, you know this game means business as a horse riding simulator because it wants to save after literally everything. You can also customize your horse, which I had absolutely no interest in doing, but I did name her Syphilissa, so there's that. You can also groom your horse, which I initially thought was a set of purely cosmetic animations, but it turns out it actually serves a purpose in gameplay. More on that later. Winner's Circle has several game modes, but really the primary mode is the 3-day event mode, which has 5 levels of difficulty. On each level, you have to complete 3 events in order: dressage, cross-country riding, and show jumping. Dressage is the first and easiest of the events. All you have to do is follow the path and change your horse's gait at the appropriate times. You can incrementally increase the horse's gait by pressing up, and you can decrease your horse's gait or make the horse walk backwards by pressing down. In later difficulties, you also have to use the square and circle buttons for something called left half pass and right shoulder in. I'm sure those are significant in real horseback riding, but the animation looked exactly the same whether I was pushing buttons or not, so I have no idea what it means and I don't care enough to Google it. For the most part, you're scored based on how well your horse is groomed, which is what the grooming option is for on the main menu. However, grooming is totally non-interactable. You basically just pick an option and watch your character do it for you for a couple seconds. Much interactive, very immerse. The next event is cross-country riding, which I consider the most fun of the 3 events. As the name implies, you just ride around a trail and go through checkpoints until you reach the end. Here you can get a full idea of what the riding controls are like. Much like other PlayStation games, there's a bit of a delay to most of your inputs, but it almost feels appropriate for this game. It actually feels like how I imagine horseback riding would really feel. There's some strategy to when to speed up, when to slow down, and how to time your inputs properly. At some points, you will have to jump over obstacles with the X button, and considering how horribly wrong that could go in real life if you mess it up, there's really no consequence for messing up a jump other than just not jumping. While the gameplay itself is serviceable in what it's trying to accomplish, Mary-Kate and Ashley's little voice clips giving me words of encouragement or telling me I screwed up really got on my last nerve. And coming from someone who has personally known 1 or 2 horse girls before, I can tell you they certainly wouldn't take this kind of criticism no matter how deserved. The third and final event is show jumping, which is basically the same as cross-country riding, but it's shorter and all of the checkpoints are jumps. After each event, you're placed based on how well you did, but I easily got at worst 3rd place in every difficulty, and apparently that was good enough to get me a gold trophy by the end of this mode. So while the controls and mechanics are perfectly competent, the game was overall way too easy, and I ended up beating this entire mode in about an hour. You earn ribbons for doing well in each event, and you can spend them in the shop on the main menu for clothes mainly. I'm sure you're supposed to wear certain types of clothes for each event, but they don't appear to change how the game plays. I wore the same jacket and pants almost every time, and it was totally fine. Other than that, the clothes don't appear to have much of a mechanical purpose. You can also buy maps to help you find stuff in the game's adventure modes. There are 3 adventure modes in the game based around 2 open world maps to explore. The first is a free ride mode where you can explore the map and find all the ribbons hidden in the environment, but there's no pressure to do anything at all if you don't want to. For all the game cares, you can just ride around and collect absolutely nothing. There's also a horseshoe collecting game where you have to explore the map and collect all of the golden horseshoes lying around, and a horse trials mode, which is basically just cross-country riding with a time limit. And that's it. This game is unbelievably short on content. I thought the first 2 games were short, but my footage for this one was literally just under 2 hours long. And that includes the time I took to customize my character, the intro FMVs that I couldn't skip, and all other non-gameplay stuff. Notably, Winner's Circle was probably the only Mary-Kate and Ashley game I've played so far that seemed to take its audience and content seriously, but it probably took itself a little too seriously. Despite having very little content, everything seemed to go on longer than it should have. The overall game felt really impersonal and boring, and I feel it would have been far better if it didn't have to be a Mary-Kate and Ashley product, even though it barely feels like one anyway. And I still hate horses. Now, the moment of truth. Were any of these games even remotely worth playing? Probably not. Winner's Circle was boring and lame, Crush Course was cheap and frustrating, and Magical Mystery Mall was sometimes interesting in concept but was poorly executed. I've certainly seen licensed games far worse than these, and they might be fun in a so bad it's good kind of way, but that's the problem. They're not actually good. Mary-Kate and Ashley's films and videos were always stilted by their need to be Mary-Kate and Ashley products, and all three of these games have had that same problem. Perhaps there's a hidden gem somewhere in the obscene number of Mary-Kate and Ashley games that exist, but as far as these three games are concerned, we haven't found it yet.
What do you think, Ashley? Would you buy these games?
Thanks, but I think we're gonna stick with buying clothes. Yeah, it's a lot safer.
Amen to that.